When the deal's too good to be true, you know it is. And you'll pay a hell of a lot more than sticker price at Needful Things. Alright everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. And welcome back to the next part of the Ranking of King, a video series in which I am going to read and rank every Stephen King book I can get my hands on. Alright, so today, of course, we are taking a look at Needful Things, which was written published in 1992. So a quick plot synopsis. A man named Leland Gaunt moves into the small, quiet town of Castle Rock, and he opens up a very special store called Needful Things. While it doesn't look like he stocks much, everything he does have is super special. He just so happens to have the exact item that every single one of his shoppers is looking for. Every single one of his shoppers needs this one thing. And all he wants in return is a small amount of money and for you to owe him a favor. So Needful Things is, I like the concept and I like the premise quite a bit. A topic that we're probably going to have to eventually address here, and I'm not quite sure how to get to it, it'll be its own video, but is Stephen King a horror author? He has written many great horror stories and novels, but he also writes so much more. He's kind of a genre into himself. He's one of those authors. And Needful Things really isn't a horror novel. It is more of a work of kind of like dark satire. It's a farce, and it's a pretty good one. The satire is on the nose. It's bombastic satire, but satire doesn't actually need to be nuanced to be successful. Sometimes what you need is bombast, and Stephen King, I think, has some trouble being nuanced sometimes, and he likes to hit things with a big sledgehammer, and this is kind of a big sledgehammer of a novel, especially when you look at its length at nearly 800 pages. And so what it's a story, it's a novel all about consumerism and all about being caught up in that need for things, something that I am not guilty of at all. Yeah, right. We're a consumer culture. It's hard to not be guilty of wanting things. I mean, as I stare at this stupid wall of games that takes up all kinds of room, and synthesizers and books and all of that stuff. And sometimes when somebody who is making something to buy, to consume, is making a comment on consumerism, it can be a little weird. It's like, well, do you want me to buy this book and enjoy it or not, Mr. King? I'm not. So I get the disconnect, right, between the theme and like the reality of our existence. But yeah, it is a farce. It's a statement on just crass consumerism, on how the things that we obsess over, the things that we cherish, how sometimes those things, they do end up owning us. They end up controlling us. And a lot of people do a lot of bad things in the name of greed, in the name of like wanting to get that next thing, of keeping up with the Joneses. You know, it's not a super original idea. It's been done 1,000 times before, but this is King's take on it, and it's pretty good. It's not great, but there are some really cool moments. As Gaunt, as the store owner, as the ultimate the negotiator, he makes deals. You know, you'll go into the store and you'll see, oh man, I've got to get that. You know, if it was me, it's like, I got to get this first edition book or some super rare board game. And he'll be like, all right, well, how much is that worth to you? Oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. He goes, oh, what do you have in your pocket? You know, bring out some change. He goes, 80 cents. That's the exact price. You know, what? No way. He goes, but I want you to do me a favor. And usually the favors he asks for are like jokes, tricks, or pranks played on other people in the town. He pits people against each other, and he knows how to get to everybody's just deep rooted innate feelings of greed, of selfishness, and he prods at people to get them to do things to each other, all in the name of obtaining items. And just the things that he gets people to do each other, the tricks, the pranks, they build up in tension, and people start getting really pissed off at each other, and they build into this like just crazy like height of insanity, really, where you have women who hate each other and they end up like hacking each other to pieces with knives and cleavers. A young boy sadly commits suicide over a treasured object that he can't tell people he has because he doesn't know how to explain how he got it. And then the two factions of holy warriors, the Baptists and the Catholics, they end up getting into this huge street brawl over what is really just a harmless night of charity gambling. It builds to a great crescendo. Sorry, I don't know why I can't say that word right now. But and the final quarter of this book, not a quarter, maybe the final fifth of this book is really quite good. I think it's one of King's strongest endings, and just the intensity, the insanity. It's like a fever pitch of everybody in the town has been just jabbing at each other over the course of a couple weeks, I think. And everybody just gets so fed up with everybody else, and they just start going at each other. And Gaunt, that's the store owner, his final thing that he offers to all of these people who are completely pissed off are weapons, and they end up using these weapons on each other, and it's just, and people end up setting dynamite and blowing up buildings. It gets totally crazy at the end, kind of like Tommyknockers. And there actually is quite a bit of similarity between Needful Things and Tommyknockers. They're both about a large group of people in a city who are overcome with this force that comes into the city or is from within the city, causes them to change, causes them to become evil, causes them to lose their humanity. In Tommyknockers, it's an alien presence that comes from within. It literally comes from the ground in the city, and it's unearthed by people in the city. In Needful Things, it comes from the outside. Leland Gaunt is a stranger. He comes into town and he brings this power into town with him. I'm not quite sure what the differences of where the evil is coming from is saying. I haven't quite wrapped my mind around that. But it is interesting to think about Tommyknockers and Needful Things as kind of two sides to the same coin. I think King was examining the frailty of our society and how we're on kind of a knife's edge of falling into chaos. And I think King does tackle that subject quite a bit, and he's pretty good at it. I think another one that I like that he does that with is Cell, and I'm a huge fan of Cell. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's a pretty great novel. But even though the last bit is good, the premise is good and the concept is good, I don't think the plot actually holds up under the weight of 800 pages. About a third of the way through, I was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. I wonder what the plot's going to be like. What's the story? What's the driving narrative? And I kept reading, and I was getting really excited. Like, oh, man, what's going to be the reveal? What's going to be the reveal? And then you get about halfway through, and you're like, wait, it's just the same thing over and over. What's going on? And finally, at the end, it's like the plot starts. So there's a lot of stuff to get through. It becomes very repetitive, and that's the major downfall of Needful Things. There were parts that I just did kind of skim because I wanted to get to the meat of the story. He made the point over and over again about Needful Things, about how the store operates, about how people are being used and how their greed is getting, you know, taken advantage of and all that kind of stuff. And it starts to wear out its welcome about halfway through, and then you realize you have like 400 pages left to go. So in that sense, it's not one of Stephen King's best. I have read worse though. As far as King connections go, there are a lot, you know, of course, the Castle Rock stories. One thing that it does back up that it is better than Tommyknockers is the protagonist. I really liked the two kind of main protagonists. We have Alan Pangborn, who is in other Castle Rock stories, and his lady friend, girlfriend, Polly Chalmers. And both of them are really great. Their relationship is awesome. You're rooting for them. They both have interesting kind of secret backstories that King is able to use that to manipulate, you know, to manipulate the characters into making decisions that don't benefit them in the long run. And it's really good. Those two characters are great. Two of I think of my favorite King leads. I liked them quite a bit, and that right there is like way better than the leads in Tommyknockers, which you know, Gardner and Bobby, which just weren't very interesting protagonists. But you know, it mentions Cujo, back to King Connections. It mentions Cujo and other Castle Rock stuff. You've got quite a few pretty major connections to the body. So that was Needful Things, and now we need to take a look at, so here's the Needful Things placard here, the green awning hanging over the store. And so far, our ratings are as follows: Desperation, Tommyknockers, and Firestarter. So where am I going to put Needful Things? Did I like it more than Desperation? No. Did I like it more than Tommyknockers? No. Did I like it more than Firestarter? This is going to be where a difficult decision comes in. I liked some of it more than Firestarter, but I did skim quite a bit of the whole like middle third, or kind of back middle third, and I don't think that says very good things about the book. So I'm actually going to place Needful Things at the bottom of the list right now. So we have our first reigning champion, Desperation. This is the second video in a row that Desperation is #1. So our ranking so far is Desperation, Tommyknockers, Firestarter, and Needful Things. Well, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come back for the next part of the ranking of King. Take it easy. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.